Ready, Ms. Beck? We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the August 15, 2024 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook, as I serve as the chair this year. Joining me today is Commissioner Aaron Mays. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Bill Rippon. Good morning.
Good morning.
Our county councilor, Mr. Eckert.
Good morning.
And our esteemed clerk, Ms. Cindy Beck.
Thank you. I've been gone for a few weeks. My son-in-law had some serious surgery, and I've been between being a KU Med with my daughter and the recovery. And my staff, I want to thank them especially. You know, they're the best in the world. What can I say?
Ms. Beck,
All
you
the
do
rest of
have-
the department
You
heads
have
already know
excellent
that.
staff, and our thoughts with your family.
Yes, we did it great. Great. So, okay.
Kick us off.
Item 1, presentation A, City of Topeka Neighborhood Revitalization Plan.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dan Warner. I'm with the city's Planning and Development Department. With me today is Rhiannon Friedman, who's the department head, and Mike Hall, who's the city's land use planning manager. I'm going to give you a relatively brief presentation about the city's neighborhood revitalization plan update. So let's go ahead and get started. So Topeka was the first city to adopt the NRP in 1995. It's been approved 9 times since then. We've had 100% participation of all the impacted tax entities. We're talking to you today because the current plan expires at the end of this year. So we've got data back to 1995. So within that time, there's been 912 total applications and 647 approved applications. And property owners have invested $515 million in their properties, and that's both commercial and residential properties. So the first applications that were part of the NRP were received in 1995. It's a 10-year rebate period. So in 2006, that's the first year that those first applications were not getting the rebate. So we call that new tax revenue. So since 2006, all taxing units have received $34 million in new tax revenue. In Shawnee County, $10.5 million. And then for every dollar rebated by the taxing entities, we've had $8 invested by property owners. The NRP is based primarily on the city's intensive care and at-risk neighborhoods, and 70% of the investments happened within those neighborhoods. Additionally, we've seen $165 million invested downtown and $98 million invested in historic properties. I mentioned already that the NRP targets at-risk and intensive care neighborhoods. That neighborhood rating is based on the city's neighborhood health data. So we updated the neighborhood health data earlier this year, and we've synced up the NRP to be updated within the same year. So on that map, the various colors represent the neighborhood health categories. So the red is the intensive care, the pink is the at-risk, light blue is outpatient, and the dark blue is healthy. Overall, this boundary reduces the NRP boundary by 1 square mile. The last update, there was also a 1 square mile reduction. So the last couple years, this boundary is getting smaller. Give you some examples of projects that have occurred within the current time period. So at 4th and Washburn, the Potwin Lofts utilized the NRP to remodel that school into housing units. And then there's been a series of single-family homes built within these neighborhoods, new single-family homes. So a little bit of information about the rebates. So if you make improvements to your property and raise the value 10% for residential or 20% for commercial, then you're eligible to have those extra property taxes caused by your improvements rebated to you. A simple way to think about this is if you're paying $100 in property taxes now, and the work that you do causes your taxes to go up to $200, it's that $100 increment that's eligible for the rebate. not the base taxes. We do not rebate the base property taxes. There's three types of rebates. There's a standard, which is 95% for 5 years, 50% for 5 years. Standard plus 10, which is 95% for 10 years. This is intensive care properties, historic properties, and any new housing unit. And the standard plus 20 is up to an additional 10 years. The requirements there are TIF district, $10 million investment, and it has to have a housing component, and it's the governing body that approves those. We don't have a but-for test with the standard rebates. We target the most investment challenged areas. We have an application due within 60 days and have a significant investment thresholds to be eligible. I mentioned that 10% for residential. That might not sound like much, but that typically requires the addition of square footage or a new garage to move that value 10% for residential. And the standard plus 20 or properties outside the area do require a but-for study. Last thing here is the governing body can approve a dilapidated structure worthy of preservation outside the NRP area. State law allows that. The former Menninger Tower site was included in the last update, so that property, that tower property, is eligible for the NRP even though it's well outside the boundary. So what we're doing right now is meeting with taxing entities. Once we complete that, the city will hold a public hearing, and if they adopt the plan, we'll ask the other taxing entities to execute interlocal agreements by the end of the year. And with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Before, Ms. Beck, does your office work with the rebate program as well? And
Yes, we do.
in what way do they operate?
In what way do they operate?
Well, how does your office work with the rebate program?
Well, my office works with Dan's department. Lori Ray in my office works with them. With Annie Driver. We coordinate with the applications. We also work with the county appraiser's office. They're the ones that give us the values of because obviously they're the ones that check what kind of improvements have been made, and it all gets taken care of. And there's they have the city courses, the driving force behind it all. They're the ones that set all the rules, and we follow behind. And but we're the ones that have to provide the figures. And then my staff, Lori actually puts it on if they meet the criteria by tax time, then we put that NRP starts for that year.
Okay, great. Dan, can you go back to one of I think the second slide you showed? It was the history of the applications. There you go. What happened in 2003? That's quite a spike, and then we haven't really seen that level of involvement since then.
Sure. So, we got this question at Seaman School District Board meeting also. So when the program first started, we got a lot of applications for like everything, and what's kind of happened since then is we're really just getting the ones that are most likely to be approved. So for instance, a home rehab, like replacing a roof or fixing your siding or something, that's really not going to move your value. That's a lot of what the applications we got early on. So that kind of stuff just doesn't move the value enough. So I'm not sure what 2003 is exactly. I can go back and try to find that.
It was just, and then on the next slide,
Yeah.
I think this is really a key slide showing the amount of investments. In 2017, you had a huge amount of investment, and then it's kind of trailed off since then. Are you expecting or hoping that we could get back to that level of investment that we had in that range?
I expect it will kind of ebb and flow. I know I checked the applications for 24 so far, and we've got some bigger projects in there. So, yeah, and I know of some other stuff that's potentially coming along. So, yeah, I think we'll see some spikes, and it'll probably drop again. And I think that's typical pattern for us.
Okay. Commissioner Mays, do you have some questions?
Was 2017, was that the construction of the Cyrus Hotel? Is that what that is?
Quite possibly, it could have been something, I'm just not positive
I mean,
about that.
Yeah, for it to be almost $15 million more than the year before it, I think it's gotta be something like that.
Commissioner Rippon?
No questions.
So you mentioned at the beginning of this, the reason why you're here today is to talk about an update and also to talk about the program is coming to a point of renewal.
Right, so that's part and parcel of the same thing. So it expires at the end of the year. So what we do for this year leading up to that date is get in the document, figure out if there's things that need to change, talk to all the taxing entities, remind them what we're after here, and try to get that all done by the end of the year.
Is there any action that's needed by the county commission to approve or help renew this process?
Today, no. What will happen, hopefully, sometime this fall is the city, somewhat other than me, will reach out for the interlocal agreement. So just executing those interlocal agreements and then trying to get that done by the end of the year. So that'll be either your action or just your administrative action, whatever that might be, sometime in the next couple months.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming here. I mean, it's a worthwhile project and it reinvests back into the community. And so I thank you for all of the work that you do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna, and also for being here. So. All right. Our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
Are there any questions or is there a motion on the consent?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
This morning, we have vouchers totaling $8,102,701.39. 3 items to point out on there. One is a big one, but it's nothing too out of the ordinary. It's under debt service, $6,104,741.18. This is to Security Bank of Kansas City. That is our annual bond payment for principal and interest due. Under building and maintenance, $382,214.48 to King Construction is for the bridge on South Topeka Boulevard over the Wakarusa River. And then under building and maintenance, $168,210.60 to Sunflower Paving is for the Manor parking lot and sidewalk fix. So I don't have any questions or concerns about any of this, and I would move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Public Works, number 1, consider a request to issue an RFQ for professional design services relating to fiscal year 2026 high-risk rural roads project to improve the curves on Northwest 42nd Street at Northwest Carlson and Northwest Rossville Roads. Although the project has federal fund participation, the design services will be funded 100% by Shawnee County Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. County Clerk pretty much said it all, but I'll add some details here. This project here was identified in our county local road safety report. It's a small project, but quite frankly, I don't have the cost share funds for a large project at this time, so this seemed like a great project for us to get started. I was awarded $90,000 in high-risk rural road funds. I'd like to leverage $35,000 in county funds into a $125,000 road improvement. This work at the curves is non-geometric. It will involve rumble strips, signing, pavement markings, maybe lighting, all designed to improve the safety at those 2 curves. I look forward to your questions.
Kurt, what qualifies as a high-risk rural road?
I guess what qualifies, it's based on maybe the accident history. It's based on the fact that it's a certain kind of road in the county. So I would say that those two things are the key components of that criteria.
Along Highway 75, we seem to have a lot of accidents as people are trying to cross over north of 46, all the way up to the 94th. As we see just people that are trying to cross over from one side to the other, getting across 75. Are there more signage, more things that we can do? Because, I mean, we don't have any control over 75 highway. We don't have any ability to put in stoplights or barriers. That falls under the state jurisdiction, and as a lot of our high-risk areas fall under state jurisdiction. Are there things that we can do that might be able to utilize some of the high-risk rural roads to apply to that?
Not on US 75, because as you said, those intersections are the responsibility of the Kansas Department of Transportation. As you recall here, probably 10 years ago, we had a spate of accidents at North 62nd Street. I think what we could do as a county is we could work with KDOT and suggest improvements to the approaches to the intersections. But it really comes down to what KDOT wants to do. It's their intersections. You know, I think, quite frankly, I worked for KDOT for a number of years. I'm not speaking for them, but they learned a lot from US 75 up north. And those at-grade intersections, I think for certain high traffic counts, they would prefer not to do those anymore. So K4, in fact, was changed. The new K4 extension was actually changed because of the accidents we saw on US 75, and it will be a limited access highway once improved. I hope that answers your question.
It does, absolutely it does. Any other questions for Kurt?
Yes. On these, improving these curves, is it going to change the road alignment?
No, they're non-geometric improvements. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, Kurt. Our next item.
Item C, Parks and Recreation, number 1, consider approval and execution to award bid Q number 028-24, the subsequent agreement, contract C 255-2024 with Green Care for the installation of concrete sidewalks and ADA ramps at Veterans Park at a cost of $51,544.50, with funding of $50,000 from the City of Topeka Dreams Grant and $1,544.50 utilizing the Parks and Recreation Building Maintenance Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. As the clerk stated, this is Topeka's Dreams Grant. We've been working on this project for really for a couple of years now. You did give us permission to go out for bid, and we would like to go with Green Care. Is that correct? Make sure I get their names correct. Green Care Lawn and Landscape, who's a company that we work with quite a bit. We'd like to award the bid to them. The majority of this project will be covered with the grant money. The leftover amount, a little over $1,500, we will pay for out of our building maintenance fund. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And Tim, for those that aren't familiar, Veterans Park is more than just the green space that is north of the parking lot in Noto.
Correct. I mean,
It is-
that park extends on the other side of the bridge. And as a matter of fact, the majority of the park is on that side.
It's between Kansas and Quincy and Laurent and the South Road there.
Correct.
Okay. But yeah, I know a lot of people will think of Veterans Park as just being that very small grassy area that's north of the parking lot.
Right.
But it's a much larger park. And this is to put in concrete sidewalks.
Yeah, we're putting in a sort of concrete sidewalks, and ultimately the goal is to have an art walk on that side of the park. So we're continuing to work with Noto, and you'll see some future updates in that area as well.
Okay.
The parking lot is also part of that.
It is,
parking.
yeah,
That's
we do
a
maintain
huge
that
part of
parking
it,
lot.
so,
Okay.
it's
Other questions?
No.
And this is part of the Dreams Grant, so this is administered through the city of Topeka?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item D, Facilities Management, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-256-2024 with HTK for schematic design and preliminary budget, budget for the restroom renovations at the Shawnee County Courthouse.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nelza Henning, Director of Facilities Management. This is a project that we've talked about for a couple of years and became a little bit more serious with the renovation project of the courthouse. So I reached out to 3 different architectural firms, and HTK was the responsive firm, and I'd like to contract with them to see what all is going to be involved with renovating the restrooms and resolving any plumbing issues we have encountered in these areas. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So I was a little bit confused when this item was put on the agenda. Just walk me through this. We're wanting to spend $9,450 for HTK to tell us what to include in the RFP that ultimately they'll probably be bidding on?
Yes.
So why wouldn't we just send it to RFP? Because if we have other architectural firms, they may look at it differently than HTK, and then that would scrap all the work that HTK did, and we'd be $10,000 behind. Why not just send it out to RFP?
When I originally went to the firms for this, which was about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, it was done because there was money set aside 3 years ago to do this, and there was money asked for the last 2 years to do this, and I was told I needed to get moving on it. So that's kind of why we've gotten to this point. But I would really like to go ahead and proceed with them coming to, doing the investigation that needs to happen right now. They have an engineer that has been working in the courthouse that can help them determine the extent of the work that needs to be done better than I can.
But over the last 2 weeks, I mean, we talked about this going from a project of $75,000 over 4 years, $75,000 a year, to, based on the information that was provided to you and the state of the cast iron, that this now needs to be $500,000 immediately. So wouldn't we already know what the state is?
And also remember that when we started this 3 years ago, things have changed. We did the renovation of the EOC restroom last year, and when we originally proposed that, we had $50,000 set aside, and it came in at $130-some thousand. So we've seen increases in construction costs over the last 3 years. That's part of the reason why that the price went up, and just to put our hands around what all is going to be involved and how extensive the work is going to be.
I guess where I'm confused is why would we want to do this work with HTK? Why not just go out to RFP and move forward on it?
That's fine. I would like to get something going on it, yes.
Okay.
If you choose to not do this, then we will go out for RFP.
I just don't know what the additional, what are we getting additional for $10,000 that we wouldn't already have by doing the RFP?
Just a better understanding of the scope of the project.
But we've done courthouse restroom renovations, and you're familiar with the internal state of the plumbing. So I'm at a loss as to why not we just get moving on it and do the RFP?
I haven't been allocated the $500,000. I have been allocated $75,000. So, I mean, I can work with the 75, but until I'm allocated the $500,000, I
Yeah.
can't move forward.
Can I maybe make a suggestion?
Yes.
We have $75,000 set aside out of 2024's capital outlay, which sounds like it may be enough to go out for design services for an RFP. So just not for pre-design, but for the full design, which would be able to fall within your $75,000, I would think. And so you would be able to do that, and then that way, whoever's designing it would actually, it would be more than the pre-design, but it would be a full design of what we are looking at doing as a county.
I would rather do that. I mean, I would rather us not spend $10,000 just to spend $10,000. I would rather apply that money towards the project itself. And so, Commissioner Rippon?
Yeah, I looked at the restrooms the other day, and You could see some infrastructure that looked pretty bad back in some of the Chase areas, but I kind of question, you know, it looks like a lot of the women's restrooms really probably are the ones that need the major facelift, because they had like a lounge in front, which is kind of a waste of space, where they could have more fixtures in them. The men's room, I really didn't see much of an issue. And there wasn't like a double line formed out of any of them. It was handling, you know, as far as they seemed to be big enough to be handling the use there. So I question if we need to make any improvements as far as making them larger, except for maybe the women's rooms. And the men's rooms, I don't know, they seemed adequate.
Are there issues with ADA compliance?
The ADA has been modified recently. And speaking with HTK, they are concerned that the city of Topeka may require us to bring every one of the restrooms up to full compliance with this project, and that was part of the preliminary stuff they were going to do, was reach out to the city and see what the city's stance would be on these restrooms. So yes, there could be ADA implications going forward.
And wouldn't we have to comply with the new city code?
The city could provide us with a variance if, depending on how much work we are doing in the restrooms.
Because that's been some of the issues with the courthouse renovations with the city codes as it relates to what they've updated.
That is correct. And they have given us some variances on the project.
Commissioner Mays?
I don't know what the appropriate action is today, but I think after the conversation, I kind of feel like maybe this is something that's, I don't know, unnecessary, and that we should probably be just going out for bid for design services.
Okay.
And I don't know if we need to just take this off and put that on next week's agenda maybe, or if that's something we need to just amend this to do, or.
Jennifer, can we get this on next week as an RFP?
Yeah, I believe we have, I think we would have most of what you have already pulled together for what we would need to go out for design services for this restroom renovation. If you, I think, Rich, tell me if we could just have this change to requesting permission to go out for RFP for this.
Well, I'm a little bit confused myself after this entire conversation.
Okay.
Wouldn't the better thing to do just to do a design build for this?
Is it, I mean,
This seems to be the sort of thing that is more suited towards design build, if you
Yeah,
want to
we're-
save money. Because having HTK design it and then step back and let other people bid it, there is a certain advantage to HTK going forward, and HTK is a fine firm, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to denigrate them at all. But if there's design work and then there's the infrastructure work, it would seem to me that a design build might be a better suitable mechanism here for this.
Okay. If we do it as a design build, and again, let Nelda, you and Jennifer talk about whether or not that's what direction you want to go. Have this on the agenda then as next week, is whether it's an RFP or design build.
Because I think what Nelda's trying to say, and how I understand it is that to understand what has to happen here, you really have to dig into it. So if we just put it out for bid, we would have 3 or 4 firms having to dig into this at a level that might not be acceptable. So that's why I believe Nelda was having HDK do it, so we would have one entity digging into that, as opposed to having 4 stumbling over one another during business hours. So if that's the problem, then perhaps we should back up and do a design build.
and I think I see what you're saying. I mean, I know with plumbing and all of that, and this old building across the street, that anytime we open something up, it ends up worse than we think it's gonna be. Is this is it a big enough project to do design build though? I mean, are we gonna get interest from?
It's up to $500,000.
That typically design build is 2 million plus. So
Well,
it's,
and I agree with that, but here, you're going to have, it's the amount of digging that all these bidders are going to have to do that causes the problem to
and I
get
agree
in
with
there.
that. I agree with that. we need to get a full scope of what the project's gonna be involved in.
So you either do it the way Nelda did, which is have HDK do this, understanding that they might be a bidder down the road. Or we're gonna have 3 or 4 firms digging into there in our investigatory period. And maybe that's fine.
Well, I mean, if we did it as a design build, what's the likelihood it comes back at 2 million at that point?
Well, but at that point in time, we can enter into I mean, design build is basically, at the end of the day, negotiations. What level would you like, and how can we get there?
And I guess Commissioner Rippon, I guess your comment too is if you're talking about 4 floors, 8 restrooms, really, because there's 2 per floor, and that's all we're talking about. We're not going into the judge's chambers or doing any of those.
There's actually 9, there is a family restroom, but
Okay.
yes.
And the other way to look at it is, this isn't necessarily rocket science, these are bathrooms. And maybe you just tell HTK, have them do it, and then say, you understand that you're gonna be overseeing this project, no matter who wins it, you're not gonna be bidding on it.
I guess, again, $75,000 a bathroom. It seems like an extraordinary, I mean, you can almost buy a whole house for the cost of 1 bathroom.
Bathrooms and mechanical systems are your most expensive part of any construction project.
And windows.
It just doesn't seem reasonable.
Okay, and windows.
Yeah, it's hard to compare residential construction to what you do in the public.
Well, unfortunately, restrooms, especially in the courthouse, have to almost be bulletproof for what they deal with.
Yeah, and it's what you don't see is what costs the money.
Yes.
Some of those stacks may.
The guys get nervous working on them. They really do. Because we've had drain lines crumble. So they're getting very, very nervous working on them right now.
Well, I like the fact that we have $75,000 from last year's budget, I guess from this year's budget, still available for it, so that's good, but, I don't know.
We have a piece of wood holding up one of the toilets in the family restroom on the first floor. I mean, it's literally a piece of 2x4 supporting it so it doesn't fall over when people sit down on it. So it's like, and can I have all the restrooms named after me when I retire? Because I think that would be, I would love everybody
family
saying,
restroom
I have
for
to, instead of saying I have to go to the restroom, say I have to go to the Cindy. I think that would be a really great memorial. I'm sorry.
Ms. Beck, you always bring levity to our meetings.
I'm sorry.
I guess the concern that I had was spending $10,000 to then turn around, and if it is a different firm that bids on it, they set aside whatever HTK did, and they want to go in a different direction.
But that's all determined by you as to whether the direction we decide to go is the direction you want to go. And that would be maintained throughout. We can issue it as part of the RFP when we select a firm in the future for the design and actual construction administration, that this is the direction we are heading. We can include those documents.
That and what additional information HTK would be able to provide us that we don't already know.
Exactly.
Well,
We
your
can
bidders
give
will
all of that in the package that is sent out.
Your bidders would probably just be contractors. They would do whatever HTK tells them to do.
Well, it'd be a preliminary design, so technically it would still have to be designed enough to go to the city for permitting and inspection.
But that would still be HTK underneath
No,
this model?
No,
Why
no,
wouldn't it be?
HTK is only doing a preliminary design and a cost estimate on that design. So they would be the investigating and finding out, they would provide us with guidance. They would be reaching out to the city for any ADA issues, and kind of get a grasp on the extent of what is going to need to be happening.
So on your memo, you crossed out part 2, which is the design, development, and construction documents.
That is not part of the contract.
And can I ask why? Why wouldn't we do that?
because we had agreed to part one, just part one, which is the schematic design and cost estimate.
But wouldn't doing part two answer most of the questions that the commissioners are having right now?
Yes, so part of the issue I think, and that's why I was saying, should we go out for RFP for design? Because the design work is over the threshold per our purchasing policy that would be allowed to just be given to a vendor by taking informal bids. So since it's over $25,000, this estimate that was given showed about $43,000, I believe, but both parts included. So that would be over the purchasing threshold for being able to go out for informal bids.
I think we probably need to include that part two and just do it the right way.
Based on all of that information, do we want to defer action on this then to get this back on the agenda for next week, whether it would be an RFP, a design build, or adding part two?
Yeah, I think that's the most appropriate thing is I mean, it sounds like we're not ready to vote on it. I think we need to discuss it a little bit more. So, I mean, I'll make a motion that we defer action for 1 week.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion to defer action 1 week on this item by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D2, consider authorization to issue a request for pricing for electrical services to install new lighting at EECBG grant, per the grant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Approximately a year ago, we were awarded the EECBG grant through the Department of
Energy.
Anyway, so we've received proposals and we were awarded $76,000 to replace light fixtures as part of an energy improvement program. We had decided to do the North Annex shop area and then the Public Works area shops, because those buildings usually have a tendency to not get any care given to them, and this gave us a good opportunity to try to increase the energy efficiency in these areas. So this request for pricing is for electrical services to hire an electrician to purchase and install the light fixtures in those areas. And it's as I said, it's $76,000.
I think it would be well warranted for the North Annex, and so I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D3, consider authorization to issue a request for pricing for trade services.
The last time we issued the request for trade services was approximately 3 years ago. It was a 1-year contract with addition of 2 years for the 3 years. And we feel, and I've talked with Parks and Rec, who is an extensive user of this trade services contract, and they would like to go out for an RFP. So that is the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Some questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item E, commission, consider approval of resolution number 2024-54, establishing the 2025 holidays.
And this is a standard set that we have before us today. Are there any questions? I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item E2, consider approval of the appointment of Daniel Martin to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Advocate Board at the recommendation of Commissioner Cook to fill a County District 2 position.
Items 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all similar. They are appointments to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. As the board may recall, earlier this year, we had taken up some changes to the bylaws of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and then we put that on hold. so that there could be some discussions with the city regarding the interlocal agreement. Specifically, there was some discussion about the terms of board members, and so we've had requests of reappointments of individuals that may expire that term limit, but at this point, there's not been a change to it. So we do have 2 new positions that are being filled, and then 2 positions that are reappointments. And so I don't know if the board wants to consider all 4 of these at the same time or individually, so.
I personally prefer to just do it all at the same time.
Okay.
The reading's the same for me.
All right.
Okay, then item E3, consider approval of the appointment of Don Gomez to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Advocate Board at the recommendation of City Councilwoman Christina Valdeva Alcala to fill the vacant City District 2 position. Number E4, consider approval of the reappointment of Terry Roberts to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Advocate Board at the recommendation of City Councilwoman Michelle Hoffer to fill the City District 9 position. And E5, consider approval of the reappointment of Judy Gatewood to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Advocate Board at the recommendation of City Councilwoman Karen Hiller to fill the City District 1 position.
I'll move to approve.
A question. What's the status of our changes we were looking at in the bylaws? You say it's on hold right now?
Yeah, Tim and I have had a conversation. Tim's given me a marked up list of what he would like to see with the interlocal. My staff's worked on it a fair amount. We've reached out to the city, but we haven't really started conversations with the city yet.
Okay. All right.
Now, if a person is approved today and they would otherwise be beyond their term limits, would they be able to then fill out their term limit, or is that something that would be in the bylaws?
We would have to address that going forward. As of now, there are no term limits. So
Okay.
you appoint someone today, it's an appointment.
All right. All right. And under under the agreement as it is today, because the agreement is still and has not been changed, the city council has an open spot and they move to fill it, then we're obligated to approve that.
Correct.
Okay. I'll go ahead and second the motion. Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item F, Audit Finance, number 1, 2025 budget discussion.
Well, before we get started, we are about 15 minutes from the hour. We do have a standing policy that says at an hour we stand. I don't want us to get started and then be standing and awkwardly, and then, so why don't we go ahead and take a 5-minute recess now, and then we'll reconvene at 9:50 to start budget discussions. So we are in recess till 9:50. Avoid the awkward standing. Rich?
how you doing?
That's why I was like, Rich texted during this thing, and he's like, let me just start the ball rolling. Yeah, that's, yeah, I know.
Right? Time. All right. I hope everybody had a chance to go to the restroom, get a drink of water, get a snack. Just back to business.
I went to the bathroom and thought I sent you back.
All right, Jennifer, kick us off. Where we're going to start.
Yes, Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. I believe we need to start where we left off on August the 8th with our CIP discussion. So on August 8th, all of the 2025 CIP requests that were had a funding source other than capital outlay were all approved. Additionally, 3 of the capital outlay funded 2025 projects were approved. And then we had a work session on Monday where Nelda confirmed that she had found some federal funding for the Maynard lighting replacement item. So that has been shifted over to the federal grant funding. Additionally, we had emergency management let us know that the EOC radio refresh item can be deferred out of 2025. So we moved that over to the deferred column. And that the Shawnee County Tactical Command Vehicle updates can be deferred to a future year. So that has been removed. Actually, I think they may have mentioned that on the 8th. So that one is also removed. The last thing we discussed during Monday's work session was that the capital outlay transfer amount can be increased to $2,250,000 because we would be deferring the transfer into the roof and parking lot fund that we have in our building maintenance. Because we do not have any parking lots or roofs that look like they're like needing fixed immediately. And so the balance in that fund should last us through 2025 without an additional transfer.
Jennifer, we budgeted $2 million. Well, first off, for those watching at home and participating here in person, the actions of the board today are not permanent actions. These are preliminary actions. Even if we take votes today on a capital outlay, even if we make adjustments to our budget, none of these actions are final until there has been a public hearing. So all of this is preliminary discussions. So again, anything that's done today may be modified or changed. So if you are a department head today and you get everything you've requested, it may be taken away from you tomorrow. So nothing is final until it's final. So we'll start with that. And then secondly, we budgeted $2,250,000 for capital outlay. Our department heads graced us with a request of $5,200,000.
That's what it's down to now, yes.
And so we're $3 million over. So we're going to need to cut $3 million from the requests right off the bat. And so if we go ahead and thinking about this since our last meeting, I'm going to start by asking, many of these items are deferred maintenance items on our facilities. Would there be benefit in us designating a specialized fund for deferred maintenance that we would draw from and then replenish year by year? Because we are getting hit with surprises when it comes with our aging buildings, whether it's air conditioning units at J.P. Lewis, cast iron plumbing from 1963 that we find out is crumbling, and toilets being held up by 2x4s in the Miss Beck bathroom.
In the Cindy?
The Cindy.
The Cindy.
That's what
Cindy,
we're calling it
the Cindy,
now.
the Cindy. It's called the Cindy.
Just the city.
But I'm just starting off with, as a broader discussion, would there be benefit in us looking at the reserves that we have presently and establishing a deferred maintenance fund to be able to address those issues? I mean, the capital outlay was to help us forecast 4 and 5 years down the road on projects.
The CIP is,
The
yes.
CIP, yeah.
Yeah, and the capital outlay, it's, I think part of the issues we are having right now is that the capital outlay, transfer is $2 million, has been $2 million. I know it was $2 million whenever I came in 2017. It has not increased, and there's nothing I can think of price-wise that hasn't increased. So I think that's part of the compaction issue that we're seeing, is that, you know, we've got 3 departments who are making a request of about $1.3 million each. So there's no way that that will ever take place if we keep our capital outlay the same size, which is essentially what you're saying, kind of creating a second capital outlay. So I think you might be able to achieve the same thing by increasing the amount of our capital outlay budgets in general. If you make it deferred maintenance, it would be solving that, it would be kind of achieving the same thing, only you would just have some, it'd be similar to the roof and building, or roof and parking lot fund that we're utilizing. It just would have a dedicated purpose, but
Okay.
you could do either of those.
Commissioner Mays?
Well, and you're right, there are several items on here that are deferred maintenance. There's also, I mean, I think if you broke this down, there's like a buildings, there's vehicles, and then there's like equipment. So it's tough to say like what should be the priority in capital outlay when, you know, I mean, we've got a lot of vehicles on here too.
Absolutely.
Should we have a vehicle fund that's separated? I mean, that's another option as well. We own a lot of equipment, you know, not just cars and trucks, but, you know, backhoes and trash trucks and things like that too. And so, I know you're separate, Bill, but, that's something we ought to maybe look at too. But she's right. I mean, I've been here essentially 5 years, and it's been 2 million the entire time, so.
I mean, we've bumped up to 2.51 million to drop down to 1.51 million, but it's pretty consistently around $2 million.
Well, as soon as we get finished with our capital outlay and we move into the budget discussions, I'd like to remind everybody that we need to cut $750,000 off of the budget to get to where we have set our mill levy at as our starting point. So as soon as we start the budget discussions, we're gonna need to remove $750,000 from the requests.
Correct. Yeah. And which is why I think in large part, we end up with a capital outlay budget at $2 million, which because nobody wants to increase their, you know, we've been sticking with flat budgets for a very long time, which is where I mean, we're good, we're trying our best to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want any extra money being wasted. So, that's what we're trying to do, and you're right, we do have to cut $750,000 just immediately when we start our budget discussions.
Okay.
And like that, you mentioned the JPL HVAC replacement. Would that not be an emergency? I mean, if our heating and air conditioning's failing out there.
Well, and it's more than the air conditioning, it's air conditioning and heat. It will affect us year-round at JP Lewis. I would suggest that we try to go out for an RFP for that in 2024 at the very least, to figure out how much it is and see about trying to find the funding in 2024 for that.
And as I understand, this is not to replace what we have, but to reconfigure our entire system so that we have multiple mini splits as opposed to a central unit.
Yeah, I believe the pricing, or the estimate that Nelda provided was between $367,000 and $500,000, depending on if it's a partial replacement or full.
The current system, Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities Management, the current system at JP Lewis is called a VRF system. VRF is a very early version of what is now the mini split. They're similar but not the same. So the VRF has some of the backbone that the mini split system can use. We're not sure as to how much can be reused until we would hire an engineer to do a design, and that would be then bid out to a mechanical company to install. But that would be the direction, that would be the most cost effective, would be to switch out as much of the old VRF as we can to a new mini split.
So this isn't a situation where we could just use existing ductwork and then replace the condenser unit on the outside of the building, or?
It's not really a duct system, it's more of a pipe system that goes to head units that are scattered throughout the building. Similar to what you would see like in your conference room or upstairs, they're kind of a 2x2 vent that vents out in 4 different directions. That's considered a head unit. And there is piping that goes to that.
Well, okay. Jennifer, let's go ahead and get started on this then.
Yep.
So if we can scroll to the top.
I believe this is, yeah, this is the first item that is not already approved, is the courthouse restroom renovation item.
I'm going to move to approve the courthouse restroom renovations. Knowing that this is Nelda, this is going to be a multi-year project, would it not? I'm sorry to make you come back up, but
Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities. Multi-year, yes, it would span over probably 1 to 2 years. By the time we would get the RFP, the group on, the design team working on it, and we get a design and a layout and get it through the city, and we start construction, we can only block off 1 floor at a time. So in that aspect, it's gonna be drawn out for,
okay.
not because of size or anything, but just because of,
But if we approved 300,000 now,
There we go.
and then we could look to approve a remainder amount next year.
exactly. We would know if you approve 300,000 now, and once the budget was finalized, we could go out and start the process, and picking a team and moving forward with it, then we would have an idea what the cost would be, probably early 2025.
Okay. Commissioner Mays?
Yes, I was just gonna ask, the 75,000 that we already have for this year's budget, is that in addition to this 500, or could we lower this to 425, and that's gonna be probably enough?
We could
I mean,
lower it to 425 if that's, yes.
Okay.
As long as the funds were available, we could start the process. I don't see, I mean, at any point, up until the time you actually break into a bathroom, you could stop, so.
So do you want to approve 250?
I mean, that's, I think, gonna be enough, at least for me. The remodels of the bathrooms are sort of secondary to making sure that we don't have a sewer pipe break in our courthouse that we just remodeled. So, I mean, I think that's priority number 1.
And then that's the gist of it. The problem is that to get to, as Commissioner Rippon saw yesterday, to get to the piping, it's gonna be easier to tear up a bathroom. So we can knock out a wall and get in there and get access and get what we need to get access.
But is
to.
that like, we can tear out one bathroom to replace the entire pipe? Or do we have to tear out all 4 stories in order to replace that pipe? Or can we
we
cut a
can
hole
tear-
in the roof? Is that what we need to do? I mean,
We
like,
can tear it out in sections. We can replace it in sections, yes. So as we can tear it out on that floor, replace that, and then go up to another floor and replace that. It can be done in sections. But if we start this, we can't just stop it. So it's once you start, you're gonna have to finish the project, even though it may be funded over multiple years.
All right. Okay. I'm going to make a motion then to approve a funding request of $250,000.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Let's drop down to number 180, the Sheriff's Pursuit Rated Vehicle Replacement. Sheriff, you're here, and Under Sheriff, you're here. We had a chance to talk before the commission meeting. At the present time, I know that the sheriff's office likes to replace your vehicles at approximately about 125,000 miles max.
Yes, Shane Hubler, Sheriff's Office. We try and keep our, the vehicles that are on the road responding to emergencies daily, as low as we possibly can, just because of the wear and tear, the high speeds that they have to travel at certain times. But yes, we'd really like to keep that mileage 120 or less before we rotate them to vehicles that don't necessarily respond every single day.
Okay. And you talked about that you have been part of law enforcement agencies in the past that let their vehicles get to that higher amount.
Yes, when I got hired in 1989, I took a 250,000 mile vehicle from here to New Mexico and back on a transport. I would prefer that we not get into that type of situation again.
But did you make it?
Not without some challenges, but yes, we did make it back. Yes, the vehicles is probably our number one priority. I believe that there's a couple other of the items on our CIP request that we might be able to identify some alternative funding for. We can look into that a little bit more, but the vehicles is definitely our highest priority.
Okay.
How many vehicles are you talking about with this 550,000? Or
That's 10 vehicles.
10 vehicles?
So, quick question on the new vehicles, do they, if you buy a new vehicle this year, with this year's budget, does it get a brand new MDT or does it get an old one off of an old car that gets pulled out and put into it?
The MDTs are completely separate, so, yes, it would get an existing one, an existing MDT that we have today. We don't, all our upfit costs, from light bars to the different seats to cages to push bumpers, depending on the vehicles, and that's why we've tried at the sheriff's office to stay consistent with the type of vehicle. That way, if vehicle mileage is out, we can use that push bumper, seat, cage, etc. on the new vehicle. Now, there are some style changes that happen with all auto manufacturers, but it's why we've tried to keep our fleet consistent with the type of vehicle that we purchase. But the MDTs are completely separate, so.
Is it possible to phase in the new MDTs? Every time we buy a new vehicle, we get a new MDT at the same time for that vehicle? Or is it something where we have to do all of them at the same time?
Yes, it's a possibility. It would be a little bit cumbersome. Like most of our MDTs currently are 4 years old, and there are some changes coming about through CJIS, Criminal Justice Information System, that are going to change the operating system that we have to have, and that's part of the reason we're doing the tech refresh on the MDTs. MDTs is one of the things that I think we have some alternative funding sources that we could identify, and that's why they're not higher on the list of priorities as far as CIP projects are concerned.
Gotcha. So you said 125,000 miles is kind of the when you like to switch cars over. How many years is that typically on most vehicles?
In the 4 to 5 year range, approximately. We would really like that number to be lower, to be bluntly honest with you. We would like that number to be lower. We'd like to keep it under 100,000, but realistically, with the price of vehicles continuing to increase, we've realized that that's not the best case scenario for us, and that's why our maintenance issues, even though we're not changing oil every 5,000 miles, the vehicles still come in, have a safety inspection, brakes, et cetera. The whole vehicle goes through, and our maintenance becomes very critical at that point, that we can keep them to at least 100 and sometimes to 120,000 miles before we pull them out of that type of service.
Okay.
I want to make a motion to approve the $550,000 that's been requested.
Okay. I'll second. I still kind of wish that it was in the budget instead of on the CIP. Just maybe for next year, consider that. I mean,
It was previously,
Yeah.
previously it was part of the budget, and we pulled it out of the budget to make it part of capital outlay, because it was equipment related.
sure,
But,
I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
but,
Okay.
yeah.
If, historically, we've always had a little extra in the sheriff's budget at the end of the year, right?
I think I think at the end of the year, they usually do, some transfers to some of their, job ledgers that they have for equipment and technology.
And purchase of gas and tires and equipment.
Yeah, I think last year we stopped doing the gasoline one and trying to get that put back in the correct year. Yeah.
Most of that money, sir, is savings we've realized through FTEs, and I'm happy to report right at this current moment, as far as sworn, we're getting dangerously close to being actually full. We've offered, I think, 2 full-time offers yet today, and we are getting there slowly, but that's where our cost savings are, and we try and reinvest that back, whether that be into equipment or other things that we need moving forward.
So, motion made for 550. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Jennifer, can we scroll down to some of the other sheriff's items, specifically on the range target refresh? Under sheriff, is this an item that we can pull and maybe look at addressing it some other way?
Yes, I believe the range target refresh, I spoke about it at one of the previous meetings on why it needs to be done. But I do believe there's some other funding sources. I don't want to get into specifics about that.
Right, no.
For some legal reasons, but yes, I think there are some other funding sources, one way or the other, that we could fund this project a completely different way.
Okay. All right.
So would you like me to move it over to deferred for this year? So it's
Yes.
just kind of. Oh, yeah. Sorry, my spreadsheet's doing weird things. It's doubling everything, and I don't want to do that.
The EOC siren and radio encryption, I'm going to make a motion to approve for the $80,000. This seems to be a pretty high priority and need for safety.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0.
That leaves us with $1,134,000 of the 2.25 million.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the dump truck refresh and the backhoe replacement, 200,000 and 100,000 for a total of 300,000 for Public Works.
I'll second that. Kurt, how long do these these backhoes typically last? Is it like a 10-year replacement, or is this like we're doing a different one every year, or what do you think?
Kearney House, Director of Public Works. On the dump trucks, we have so many, we would like to replace one a year. We've got some that are over 15 years old, and we have a few that have a engine transmission combination that have been particularly troublesome for us. As far as the backhoes go, again, we have probably a 15-year lifespan. We use these things for a long period of time. When they become troublesome as far as maintenance, they get high hours on them, that's when we decide that we probably need to replace them. So we don't replace anything, short intervals. We keep this equipment for quite some time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
motion made. Commissioner Mays, are you seconding?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
What are we up to now? What's our total?
That leaves us with $834,000.
I would like to approve the tennis, crossover tennis resurfacing.
Before we do, Jennifer, before we get to a second, Jennifer, I had asked you earlier in the week about what money we have left from ARPA interest.
Yes.
That has not, it's been designated but not yet spent.
Yes, you did. So we currently have, the total amount of ARPA interest we've received so far is 2.1 million. We estimate another 100 million is going to come in before the project's.
100,000.
Yes, I wish 100 million would come in. Thank you.
All of our.
100,000.
We could
leaving us
replace a
with-
lot of, Cindy's with those.
Problem solved. Which leaves us with 2.2, roughly 2.25 million. So far to date, we have spent $770,000 of that for the Questica e-Civis and the Harley Law Enforcement Building, which leaves us with, we had a 911 center renovation potentially being funded out of that money for 910, a 911 backup center upgrade for 185,000, and then a possible crossover expansion. And right now, that there is $484,000 available for that.
Okay.
Didn't we talk about rolling that into this project?
Right, we talked about rolling over your cost over tennis resurfacing, item number 309, into cost over, looking at that as one project. So would we be able, if the tennis court resurfacing 175, it would look like there's
There would be enough for that. I just don't know how much, I have no idea how much the cost of adding a couple tennis courts to the crossover area it would run. I don't know if anyone has researched that.
Yeah.
Your keyboards.
Oh, lots of zeros. It's that many zeros. Thanks. Hopefully not.
So I would like to look at doing the cost over tennis resurfacing from the ARPA interest only, as opposed from capital outlay.
In combining it
With the,
with the additional project, but I think that's the smartest thing to do. I think we're probably gonna realize some savings by doing it as one project instead of two. And I think the ARPA interest is probably a more appropriate
Okay.
funding source, in my opinion.
I agree.
so would you be willing to withdraw your motion then?
Yes.
All right, so let's,
Do you want me to move it over to deferred,
okay,
just to get it off this list?
all right. The J.P. Lewis air conditioning, I think is probably one of our higher priorities of needs. For some reason, I think our employees both want heat and air conditioning, and so we should probably accommodate them in that manner.
Wait, JP Lewis?
Yes,
Did you say Park Police?
no, J.P. Lewis.
I thought you said Park Police.
No.
I was like, yeah, they're not there. Never
Um,
mind.
No, our employees want heating and air conditioning.
Yes, I think that would be great. And again, we could look at doing that out of 2024 money with contingency funds. That, again, I don't know what that price would be.
Any-
We don't have enough contingency funds to fund that, do we? I mean,
We currently have $660,000 remaining in our 2024 contingency,
Yeah, but
and we're only in August.
Yeah, but usually the last 4 months, there's a lot of contingencies that emerge.
I absolutely agree with that.
So I feel like we had a conversation on Monday about there was two different ways that we might be able to do this, and one could be cheaper than the other. Nelda, I mean,
Might be easier if you take a seat on the front row, Nelda.
I get my steps in this way. Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. What was your question again?
so the question, I believe you had kind of alluded to the fact there might be two options. One would be to fix the current system, and whether one was just a complete replacement. If that-
The option is to reuse as much of the current system as we possibly can, switching it from a VRF to a mini split.
Okay,
That is the option.
Okay.
The reason why there's such a gap between the 350 and the 500,000 that I have been bringing forward to you is because we're not sure how much of the existing system we can reuse. There will be a majority of it, or there will be some that can be reused. But until we get a designer on that can do the work, we won't know what the final cost would be.
Is this going to be a one-year project or a multi-year project?
This would be a one-year project. Well, 1 year in the aspect of, if we got the designer on, it's August. By the time that we have documents to bid, it will probably be 2025, but once the documents are there and ready to bid, we would have to go with it.
Jennifer, would it be able to use part contingency, part capital outlay?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So go ahead and maybe do half and half? Is there gonna be 250,000 from our contingency? I don't wanna put us in a spot to where we run out of contingency funds, but
Yes, and again, every year is different, so it all just depends. You never know when you're gonna have a windstorm blow through, as but the last 2 or 3 years, we have had about $200,000 to $300,000 left at the end of the year that we've been able to utilize towards projects at the end of the year.
all right. Then what I would like to do is do that, use half from the contingency now, so we can get started on it now, and then set aside, I'll make a motion for 250,000 for capital outlay from 2025's budget.
I'll second that.
I think that the courthouse self-help area in the large judicial conference room, those may be projects that we need to hold for now, at least get us through the courthouse renovation and then address those in 2026. If we're going to be ripping up bathrooms and doing more courthouse renovations, I'd like to get us through a little bit. And so those may be projects, while they're necessary, they may not be as a high a priority as others. So I'd like them to still be on our priority list, but maybe looking at them as being deferred.
And that was
The self-help, which is 262, and the large courtroom, which is farther down.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Commissioner
I'll-
Mays?
Go ahead. Yes, he's second, or you second?
I was gonna second, but
Yeah, that's fine.
I thought you had a question.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0. Commissioner Mays?
So, let's talk about the Stormobile Event Center, Sport Court. So, I'm on the Event Center Board right now, also on the Sports Commission. I know that there are some existing pieces of business that they are looking at that are contingent on whether this happens or not. And I feel like there's gonna be a return on investment with that. The potential of the revenues that we might be able to get from sporting events, I feel like is probably a better bet than some of the concerts we've been having or not having. And so I think this is a good investment. I think we'll get our money back on it. And so, and then I know also Kellen had brought this down by changing the look of the sport court, another $125,000, I believe it was. So I would make a motion that we approve the sport court and then also the basketball court resurfacing or repair.
It was for repair of the existing basketball court and the purchase of 2 additional basketball goals.
Yeah. So,
That's a motion then to approve
Yeah.
314 and 315.
yeah.
I'll second that, but I think there's probably some naming rights that could probably be explored for that court.
Yeah.
Like somebody would like their name on that.
I mean, certainly be an opportunity for a sponsorship or multiple sponsorships even.
Well, we do have a Wildcat at one of our community centers. Maybe our K-State Extension Office can reach out to K-State.
That's outstanding.
So, motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Commissioners, I'll try not to hang on the new rims as much as I did the old ones.
I think we still owe you a bill for damage done to our event center from a wiffle ball or softball.
Softball tournament.
Yeah.
So, okay. That leaves us with $187,000 that has not yet been allocated.
Scrolling back up to the top.
Under Sheriff, can we go back to your MDTs? And I know you have 400,000 plus for your MDTs. Do all, I mean,
Shane Hubler, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. The short version is, I would really like to update these all at once. And I do think that there is some funding that we can realize maybe even this year. So if that makes life easier, we can pull that and defer that
okay,
from this year's request.
that'd be great. Thank you.
I think I could find.
What did we
this.
have left, 180,000?
Yeah.
I think the lawn in front of the courthouse, we're gonna declare that a park.
I think the Parks Department would revolt that since they were once in charge of it and they were happy to get it out of in charge of it. And that 125,000 that included hooking back up our irrigation system that has been disconnected for some time.
That is correct. The irrigation hasn't been working for 3 years. When I first came here, it was pretty much broken and not functioning as it should. And then the project hit and it was not worth going in and repairing. At this point, the damage is severe enough that we would have to run a whole new system to feed the grounds and run the courthouse.
Well, with the courthouse renovation project, we're not looking to, our contractor, originally, we had anticipated being done by the end of the year. It looks like we're going to be pushing into the early part of 2025 for courthouse renovation to be done. We wouldn't be getting to the landscaping until,
March is a perfect time of the year to start doing that kind of thing. It really truly is. But that would be what I would anticipate at this point, going out for an RFP at the end, towards the end of the year, November, December, with the anticipation that March, April, we would be putting in new landscaping and new irrigation.
I just wondered if they were gonna have all of their equipment off of the lawn.
They have anticipated right now to repair the sidewalks the first part of November.
Okay.
So they should be pretty much buttoned up and the sidewalks repaired. As far as pulling the connexes and that type of thing, it should be pretty close to December, January when those come off, yes.
Okay.
It wouldn't hurt to put some conduit under some of those walks while you have them torn
Exactly.
up for irrigation.
It'd be great to have that design laid out and ready to go so we could get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think the lawn in front of the courthouse, we're gonna declare that a park.
Okay. Before we take that up, Scott, can you come up and talk about the EMS backhaul switches, or I know Nelson's, I don't see Nelson here, but that's a very large item, and I don't want to neglect it.
Scott Garcia, Emergency Management. To be honest with you, I would have to have Nelson explain that because I am not familiar with that. He texted me late last night. He was in the office till 2 a.m. with storms, so he was not able to get in, but I would prefer him to answer that.
I agree. I'm no, Nelson is, when it comes to items like that, it's a very technical item. I don't want us to get through the capital outlay and miss something very important.
Okay, I can text him. He said he might be able to call in if needed, but
Okay, I know we have our items, and it indicates this is installation of upgraded fiber optics for the backhaul switches, installation of required Motorola proprietary switches. So this is gonna be part of the bigger radio discussion.
Yeah.
Do we want to hold then on that since it's part of the discussion for our radios? That's an item that you've been looking into, Commissioner Mays.
You know, I haven't been looking into it nearly as much as law enforcement has. I mean, I've talked about it with them, but it is definitely, I mean, we talked about it after the meeting, was it Monday? And, I mean, it sounds like there's some ways that we might be able to look into it, but, I mean, I think we're pretty far off from any of that happening still, so. I don't know. Still just kind of blows my mind how much those things cost, but.
We'll move forward then, but tell Nelson thank you for all of his service last night too. I mean, last night was a big storm night, and I know our emergency crews were out working hard last.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, Jennifer, if you can jump us down to the bottom, we have 187,000 left. The request for the courthouse irrigation was 120, so we would be able to pay for that.
125.
It would be good to get it done when we're doing the sidewalks, so it's all contingent.
So just a reminder on that one, I believe she's doing the sidewalks in 2024.
Mhm.
So if you want to get started, this is a 2025 item that we're approving.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you would be able to necessarily spend, we would have to look at pre-spending the money.
Nelda, do you have any resources if we're digging up some of the sidewalks in November, if we're laying some conduit under it? Okay.
And also, come on up, but.
I told you that chair up front's
Yeah.
probably,
So since we're back on this, I mean, what kind of, like, is this for like sod, or is this like, we're gonna put down grass seed and some shrubs or flower beds, or what are we looking at here for landscape?
Well, it is a full irrigation, and remember that we go from the east side all the way down to the alley on the west side, so it's a long run of irrigation. It will be, I anticipate seed, because it'll be early in the spring, the seed should take without any issue. But it'll also include putting some screening across those two lovely condensing units that are now in front of the courthouse, that are supporting the crack units in the new server room, so that we don't have those, even though they're very, very pretty, not right up in the public eye. It will be removal of some of the overgrown evergreens currently. I've been speaking with the sheriff's office, courthouse security, to figure out how we can better secure the entrance to the courthouse, and not allowing places for people to hide items as they're coming into the courthouse. So we'll be looking at that. And then providing, if you've noticed, the front steps, all the landscaping across there has pretty much died out, and replacing some of that. So it's a pretty extensive list, probably way more than the $125,000 would support at this point. but we'll do what we can. If we can get the irrigation base in, adding plants in the future is pretty easy to do.
Yeah. That's all I had, thank you.
I just would really like us to be able to address the irrigation. I think that's gonna save us in the long run, and being able to address it now when we're already doing work around the building,
Definitely.
so. I'll make a motion to approve the 125 requested.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Jennifer, if we can go just down what
Yeah.
is left.
$62,000.
Okay. Can we go back up to the top? So, out of the remaining items, the only one that even comes close is the J.P. Lewis front entry. Come on up.
So the entry into the J.P. Lewis, it's actually further back, it goes all the way from the front door to the WIC, the check-in area. It is a product called Marmoleum. I reached out to a a flooring installer to look at it, because Marmoleum is kind of a hit-and-miss product. It's not like a sheet vinyl or something like that, it's a little different. Anyway, the product is gotten brittle and stiff. It's been down since, I believe, 2012, and it's in the sunlight. It is cracking. There's been moisture from condensation of the windows that has gotten underneath, so it's delaminated from the floor. They cannot repair it. It is just, it looks really bad. Could it get another year? Yes, it could, but it is something that's going to be needing to be addressed because it is delaminating from the floor and it is failing.
Is the most of the cost of that in just the labor of removing the old floor? I mean, it's like glued down then?
It is glued down, yes. The request would be to remove the Marmoleum and put down a luxury plank tile. And it's not a square tile, looks like a wood plank, but it'd be a luxury vinyl tile that looks like a plank that is a little bit easier to replace if needed versus the Marmoleum, because the Marmoleum is like one big sheet and then it's cut into the patterns and then it's seam welded together at the seams where the patterns are cut in. So it's kind of labor intensive and looks good, but it's pretty labor intensive. And the luxury vinyl tile would snap down pretty quick and pretty easy.
12 years for flooring is pretty decent. I mean,
Yeah, and the wear and tear, I should say wear and tear, but the sun bakes these corners and it's just literally, you go over and tap on it and it just crumbles. I mean, it's pretty rotted out at this point. But it is really right up next to the windows is where it's failing. Those corners.
Okay. Do we want to hold it for now and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just-
All right.
Well, I'd probably stop by there and look at it.
so then are there any other changes we want to make to capital outlay now? All right. Then let's hold this as it is, then Jennifer. Again, for those watching at home, those present, the decisions made this morning are just to set the initial capital outlay. We may be adding to the capital outlay, increasing it from the $2,225,000 to address some of these remaining items, or it may be approved as it is right now. But, so, let's,
Go into the next topic, which is looking at the 2025 budget as requested by the departments. when we looked at setting our public notice out and sending that to the clerk's office, in order to get to that number, we looked at reducing our budget to $750,000. So that's kind of where we are picking up today.
Jennifer, before we start, roughly, can you kind of walk us through the budget steps and where we're at today and where the final step?
Yeah, so the budget process, we began our budget process back in June. Actually, departments actually started well before then, I'm sure. Our official countywide budget process starts in June, where we pull forward all of our existing employees. We apply a potential increase mid-year in 2025 and come up with the updated salary amounts for 2025. The departments then make any adjustments to their requests for 2025. They come through our office, we verify them for accuracy and make sure that we have all of the additional information. The departments then have budget hearings that they come and discuss with you and our office here what the requests are for their budgets. This year, they pretty much highlighted any of the changes that they had over a flat budget. And then we compile this list. We have to send out the preliminary notification to the clerk's office. After this, we will have we have set our revenue neutral rate and 2025 budget hearing for the public for September the 5th at 9 a.m. And then after that time, then you as the commission can finalize the 2025 budget in a nutshell.
All right.
Jennifer, so could you talk a little bit about the insurance? I think if somebody doesn't know the details of our budget and they look at this, it shows our administrative services has gone up by
Yes,
a
43.
tremendous amount. And
Yes.
so that's not exactly the case. So could you kind of explain that?
Absolutely. So this year, historically, each of our departments have included the insurance costs for both their buildings and their vehicles, and additional work comp, all of the additional insurance that we carry. We had most of that was spread out to the departments. The general expenses always had a portion of it that wasn't easily allocated, but if a department had 4 vehicles, they would have the budget for those 4 vehicles insurance in their departmental budget. So what we did this year, just for ease of administration and just to try and get it to where it's not affecting every single department every time we have a change in our insurance rates, which have been sizable over the last couple of years. We moved all of the insurance expenses, save 2, which have to do with like the health department's medical malpractice is still in the health department because that just makes sense to be there. Everything else is down in the general expenses. So that way, if we should look at any type of RFP where there's some savings, we can actually just hit it against our general expenses, and it doesn't affect every department's budget throughout the year.
So I hate to make more requests of you because I know you're busy.
No.
But would it be possible, I know that if I dig, I can find all this information myself, but sometimes I feel like you guys have it at the push of a button. Could you get like a list of how much each department saved in insurance costs? Because I feel like it's relevant to their budget requests.
Yes, I have that upstairs, so I don't have it here, but I can provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, in going through budget presentations and getting ready for today, it appears that the three largest requests were an increase of $1,382,976 from the sheriff's office, an increase of $726,000 from the district attorney's office, and an increase of $750,000 from Vallejo. Does that correlate with your?
Dollar-wise, yes, that would be the largest dollar increases, other than the general expense of insurance, yes.
Okay.
Jail too had it.
The jail had an increase of $485,000. So,
I think
No,
it's more than that.
is it, okay,
It's almost $1 million, 900,000 approximately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, $885,000.
all right. If we can start, I guess, under sheriff or sheriff, talk about the sheriff's office.
Shane Hubler, Sheriff's Office. Actually, we've talked about part of why our increase has gone up this year. Previously, when we talked about the fuel budgeting, the way that we changed the fuel budgeting changed to what our request was this year. If we had continued to do the same practices we had before, the request wouldn't have gone up so much. A lot of the reason, if you look at actually our 2024 budget request, the increase isn't as much. It's actually considerably less, but because of the cost savings that we were able to realize in 2022 to push through into 23 to pay for items in 24, that's why our increase looks greater than it actually is if you look at our actual request when we started out for our 2024 request.
And doesn't this also add 2 more deputy positions as well?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have to add those 2 new positions this year?
There, I would probably want to defer to the crime rate in Topeka and Shawnee County and the amount of response that the taxpayers expect and the type of service they expect from the sheriff's office. I believe that request is to move forward and continue to provide the safest possible community that we have.
Are there other items within the sheriff's budget where we might be able to scale back from for this year, from that additional $1 million request?
I can absolutely go back and sit down with our accountants and see. I will tell you that we start our budget process every year in January to try and get to this point. We've made some fairly drastic cuts as we move forward, but as costs of technology, which drives a lot of what law enforcement does right now, and as those costs increase, the cost of just putting people in seats increases. I believe this is a fair request, but absolutely, if need be, we can go back and look at and see if there's some cost savings that we haven't realized yet.
Commissioner Mays?
So one thing I noticed on here, under intermittent employees, you jumped from $70,000 to $391,000. Are you planning on hiring a bunch of intermittents instead of full-time employees, or?
When we started with this budget preparation, one of the things that we had realized that we were having a very hard time filling a lot of our office assistant 2 positions at that pay rate. And what we had realized is we do have some people in the community that want to work, they just don't want to work full-time. And we thought this was a more realistic ask to try and get some of those positions filled by intermittent people. We have 2 employees that have worked for us in the past that are currently working for us in an intermittent status. And they have mentioned that there are other people that they know that would like to work, they like the environment to work for, but they just don't have, it doesn't fall into their own budgeting to work for Shawnee County, but they like the work that they do and the people that they work for, and the intermittent is the best way to fill that, and so we just thought that was the best way. But It is a possibility in that particular line, like I said. I think if we went back and looked at it, there may be some cost savings. I just don't know what they are off the top
Well,
of my
I
head.
mean, and, you know, I commend you. I think I'd much rather do that than, you know, than fund vacant positions. You know, we've talked about that multiple times, so, I don't remember reclassifying any of those though, but, I mean, is that something we would have done? Yeah, okay, so,
I don't believe I would have to rely on our HR department, but I don't believe we have reclassified it. We did reclassify those positions, or we have not? We have not, okay.
Just so you know, that is in anticipation of 25. That's why we're
Okay.
trying to figure out how we can move forward and keep the most productive workforce that we can.
okay.
I'm just gonna ask, because I don't know, does that mean we're carrying both the intermittent position and the unfilled positions at the same time?
As,
So we might be listing them twice, is my question?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I would prefer that we have full-time employees that work for us, that are committed to working for us. And the problem with an intermittent employee is just that they don't have, probably not the right words, but they don't have any skin in the game. They're not counting on us for their benefits. They're not counting on us. It's more like an overtime from their full-time job. Both of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head, and a third that we're looking at right now that you will be seeing in the near future, is they're supplementing their income with an intermittent position, and it gives us the resources that we need as we've had trouble filling them out. If we get all of our positions full, then I don't believe that we would need as many intermittents as we possibly do. But what I have seen historically is, especially with our OA2 positions and some of our other positions that aren't paid at a great rate, that those positions are very cyclical, and we have, if we hire one, one quits to go on to employment someplace else. Intermittents fill that gap as we're trying to fill those positions.
Thank you.
I agree with that. I'll talk with you afterwards, because if we're budgeting for both the position on a full-time basis so that you can fill it, then we wouldn't need to also budget for a full intermittent position, because one would be being paid in absence of the other. So we might be able to cut that intermittent line down some. We can look at that.
Okay.
And I know most of us in the room are aware of this, but just in case we're not, and those, again, watching from home and watching at a later time, by reducing the $750,000 down to what we've previously approved, this brings us to a flat budget, correct?
Yes, it brings us to a flat
Flat mill levy.
mill levy, yes.
But this does not offer any property tax relief. So if you've seen your property taxes go up, you're not looking at a reduction in your property taxes. In order for us to do that, we're going to need to make cuts even deeper.
Yes.
So, when the public comes to the revenue neutral rate in the budget presentation on September the 5th, and they ask us why we haven't, that's part of this bigger discussion. So, again, for those watching at home and at a later time.
Yes, the revenue neutral rate is not a flat budget. It is not the same as a flat mill levy. They're two different things.
Bill, I'm going to pick on you next as Vallejo. Even though you're retired, and I know you're here for Vallejo, you've got your Vallejo board there.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the commission and staff. Bill Persinger, parentheses, retired Vallejo CEO, here at the request of our interim, Christine Wills, and I'm honored to present Linda Oakes, a member of our governing board, and so we're here for questions.
Okay. The increase is to $750,000 to bring us to $3 million as an allocation for Vallejo. Of that request, we need to reduce our budget down by $750,000. I'm not asking to take all $750,000 from Vallejo, but What can we reduce from?
So I might, it's a great question, and, you know, as always, I would refer to Linda. You want to start, or you can fill the gaps? I might.
Yeah, I'll let Bill. Linda Oaks, Vallejo Board. I don't know what to tell you about a figure. The money that we receive from the county goes primarily to serving the uninsured, to homeless, to our homeless programs. Our salaries have had to increase because of competition in hiring staff. The problems aren't getting any less right now, but the costs are going up. And so even though we have seen some relief with the CCBHC rate that we still have a high burden of uninsured folks that we serve. And that's where this money goes. We can apply for grants, but they tie our hands to certain programs. So that's why it's so important. Our work with the homeless population, the warming centers cost a lot of money. Last winter, we're gonna have more of those events. We gave out water when it was hot. We are there when those events happen. And the other reason I think it's so important to be there, and Bill can back this up, is that when we're out there with homeless and we're out there with the homeless population and with these events, we are getting in people's way. We are right there to say, here's our services, so that's where we can help reduce the problems. But there's a large uninsured population. Kansas has not expanded Medicaid, and that hurts us. So,
Commissioners, Bill Persinger, retired. Well said, Linda, and thank you for your service on the board. We do want to emphasize that all three of the partners, Breakthrough House, Family Service and Guidance Center, and Vallejo, share those dollars. And Shawnee County has hung in there with us for many, many years. In fact, it's foundational money, as you all know, and we always come here last for our dollars. Grants, Medicaid, Medicare, and all the other legitimate sources of funds that we can pursue, we do. We always come to the county as a last ask. And so we just want to be part of the family, part of the team. And if you're looking at a way to fund a portion of this or all of it, and to share with the others making a request, we'd sure be glad to share in with that. So I know that, I cannot speak for CEO Mosier, but I can tell you that a high priority at Family Service and Guidance is the Crisis Center, the Detox Center. In fact, the Detox and Alcohol and Drug Treatment Unit for kids, for adolescents, is one of only two in the state, 2 or 3 that CEO Mosier and her crew offer. Breakthrough House has expanded lately and doing more and more outreach, and also trying to get in people's way, just to be there where the individuals are when they need help. For us at Vallejo, in particular, serving adults only, the high rate of uninsured are right around 30%. But I do know that for the underinsured, which is also a great burden, for Vallejo Family Service, that's demand has gone up across the board. And so we're here, asking for support for the things we enumerate in our ask we made back on July 1, but also just to keep you posted on the fact that demand is up, access is being granted. There's better care, integrated care, a lot of things going on right now. So, but we're here as part of the county family, and we'll do our part to lift the budget to where it needs to be.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Questions for Vallejo? All right, thank you. Thank you, Bill Persinger, retired.
Oh, thank you very much.
Director Cole, we had our great groundbreaking yesterday, so you want to come up and talk about your increase to a fully staffed or almost fully staffed Department of Corrections for first time in 20 years?
Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. Our requests solely center around our staffing and increases to our big contracts. That's it. That's all of the, we don't have any extras in this budget. It is to the expected, I will say for detention, it is all strictly required contractual increases and going in line with the action that the Board of County Commissioners approved to allow us to fill the 8 vacancies that were unfunded. And so, and that was what we did last year, was unfund about $680,000 to meet cuts. So, but this year it's just staffing and that. For community corrections, it is to be able to get them the $280,000 to get them closer to what our partners in the field make. We're about $4 or $5 behind people that work just across the street. And as Judge Everts had mentioned, that people are leaving to go to do less caseloads and for more money. So that's the only request that we have.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, we are now at 11 o'clock. Rather than us taking a standing break, we're going to take another recess because some of us may need to use the restroom. So we're going to recess for 5 minutes. We'll be back at To order.
We don't have an executive session today.
Good.
Yeah, they
They
do.
can keep it.
Do?
Yeah, we do.
What?
Something for the hamburgers.
Negotiation.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right. Where do we want to get started?
I was just gonna reintroduce myself in case anyone forgot who I was. Jennifer Sauer, Administrative Services, still talking about the 2025 budget. So I guess right at this point, it's still up to you guys for anyone who want to just have questions for or have discussions. I'm not sure what direction you want to go next.
Should we start off with some of the ones that we're pretty satisfied with their budget as is? You know, there's several of these that are not really increases, they're flat or even a reduction in some cases, and so I think it'd be probably safe to just kind of go through and do those. I don't know if we need to do them one at a time, but.
Let me ask you one question.
Sure.
Just because what your original question to me was to provide the insurance savings by department. So that would actually show some of the people who are showing a negative budget request for this year would have been flat or at an increase had they not removed the insurance.
Okay,
I just want to make sure that you don't one step
Yes.
forward and then have to step back.
I understand.
That would not be true of any of our allocation partners. Well, the only one that it would be true of, it would be the event center. The event center is the only person who we have in our allocations group who used to have insurance on their budget line and they no longer do. But all the rest of our allocations groups like Safe Streets, Drug Court, Fair Association, all of those, and a lot of those members are here or have some representatives here. Those, none of them were affected by insurance other than the event center.
So let's start with health access. It's under public health. They've asked for a reduction from 110,000 to 100,000. I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Let's go to the coroner. The coroner is a contracted expense, correct?
Yes, it is.
So, as a contracted expense of $674,133, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. Let's go to the animal shelter. Again, that's a contracted expense. It increased by $2,000. I'll make a motion to approve the request of $148,344.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. The ambulance is a contracted service by subsidy of $380,000. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. If we can go to law enforcement, the drug court, $15,000. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. Safe Streets, they've made a request of an increase of flat, so $2,000 or $20,000. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. The planning department has requested a 1% decrease, but again, I think part of that is, again, insurance related. If I had to make
I think they actually do not have
Yep,
insurance in theirs. Theirs is,
There you go.
is due to some turnover.
and also making sure that that's still what you want to request.
Yes, Commissioners, Joni Thadani, Director of the Planning Department. Mine actually had to do with last year, I had requested some additional expense for overtime costs to help cover transitionary period, and I did not request that this year. It equates to just a small decrease because with other expenses that have gone up in regards to health insurance that are associated with raises and what would be called the assessment that you've given me for car allowance, and some of those things have increased my budget. But the only thing that I took off was that $15,000 for the coverage of overtime, and I just didn't feel like it was necessary to add that this year, and so I kept that off.
Okay. So at this point then, I would make a motion to approve the request for the planning department.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Under the Stormont Vale Event Center owner building expenses, it's a request of $100,000. I'll make a motion to approve that request.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. That, outside of our contingency of $1 million, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to approve the contingency of $1 million.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple, I don't know if you meant to skip them, but there's a couple of 0% for Community Resources and Conservation District.
I'll make a motion to approve the Community Resources request for $40,000.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. The Conservation District has requested $57,000. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0.
What about elections where they're going negative 15%?
Elections was a department that had a minimal amount of insurance, but the reason theirs decreased predominantly, I believe, was because of the scheduling of this being an elections off year.
Odd year.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of $1,795,375.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Okay.
Sorry, I did not set the spreadsheet up to have dollar amounts keyed into it, but I will have it set up that way for next Thursday's meeting.
Public Works is still at.
Well, um, I just want to take a moment and note, and I want to thank our department heads. I mean, a number of your budgets are not looking for very large increases. Many of your departments are under 10%. It's just the year that we're in, the state that we're in, again, with the increase in property assessments, that increases property tax, even with a flat mill levy or flat, we're still looking at an increase in trying to address property tax relief. And so this is what we hear from the taxpayers, and this is what the taxpayers want us to look at. So we're taking a harder look, and always have taken a hard look, at our yearly budgets. So these are the things that it may seem like we're rushing through some things, but for most of our budget, this is going to be a much slower process. So I don't know if the commission wants to do more approvals today, or if we want to hold. Commissioner Mays.
So one of our smaller budgets that was pretty reasonable was the Register of Deeds. I would make a motion that we approve the Register of Deeds.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Mays to approve the Register of Deeds, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Also, the Extension Council was a pretty small increase. I believe it was just wages, wasn't it, or Candace?
Candace Stiles, Shawnee County Extension Office. It's actually our benefits line. So our support staff is funded by the Extension Board. There's no money from K-State for their wages or benefits. And they are in the non-state employees insurance, and that has gone up. And we're also fully staffed this year, so that also moves that line up.
Okay, thank you. I'd make a motion that we approve the Extension Council.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
I'd also make a motion that we approve TARC as presented.
It's right below Vallejo. It's on line 43.
Was that a motion?
That is a
Yes.
motion.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. I'll make a motion to approve the service programs for the elderly and the social service grants.
So,
No,
just to clarify, I need to go back and look, but for some reason, I thought those were flat from last year in their requests, but.
No, I believe they had some, who was flat was CRC themselves.
Right.
Okay.
So the council, or the Community Resources Council was flat, but they did have some additional requests for both programs.
I might want to take a second. 11% increase on the one. And if you look at it, going back 2 years, it's a $52,000 increase on the social service grants.
I've passed to Commissioner Mays the Advocacies Council report that was presented during the budget presentation.
So there were 2 new requests, and that was pretty much the entirety of it. If you guys wanna look at this too.
What would you need to see? CRC's. I'll withdraw my motion. I'll start with just a motion for social service programs for the elderly. It's $773,764. It is $29,000 for community action elderly services. It is $45,000 for community resource council, for the SPE, SCAC, SCACAC. It is $80,000 for the East Topeka Senior Center. It is $70,000 for Habitat for Humanity. It is $50,000 for the Jayhawk Area Aging on Agency for, Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging. It is $60,000 for Kansas Legal Services, for legal services for seniors. It is $110,000 for LULAC Senior Center. It is $161,000 for Meals on Wheels. It is $75,000 for Meals on Wheels for their friendship meals. $80,000 for Pappin's Landing, services for the elderly. And $6,764 for the Silver Lake Senior Center. So,
And you made a motion on that?
made a motion.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. So then we get to our social service grants. This is a longer list. I'll make it published available rather than reading through it all. But it is a request of $258,500. So I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. Okay.
The audit finance budget was flat, more or less, and so I would make a motion, we approve audit finance's request.
I'll second. Motion made by Commissioner Mays to approve audit finance, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0.
And I can tell you that down in the administrative services section, I believe our department, the county commissioners, the clerk's office, HR, and the treasurer, none of them had insurance included in their amounts previously. They're easy to know because they don't have cars, and they're all in these buildings.
Pleasure of the commission.
Well, I mean, yeah, so without the insurance, I mean, those
Yeah.
are essentially just wages, right?
Yes,
There's
those
step
are-
increases for employees, yeah, so.
Treasurer.
I'd make a motion, we approve the county clerks.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? It Passes 3-0.
I would move we approve the treasurer's budget.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
So, let's talk about HR. That includes $100,000, I believe, for a wage study.
Yes, it does.
Without the wage study, it's more or less a flat budget, though.
I can change that just so you can see that percentages if you'd like.
I mean, that's essentially what it is, right?
That is
Yeah.
essentially what it is. The wage study is our big ask and the reason for the increase.
Okay. So, I would make a motion that we approve HR without the wage study.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0. I might just note, I believe a wage study is important. If we are able to find money elsewhere at some point, I would like to revisit this discussion. But at this point, for today's discussion, so it's passed 3-0.
They're getting restless, they're starting to throw balls.
Is that you?
was
Who
Tim.
threw the stuff?
The courts did that.
Tomato. Yeah. Okay.
She's sitting next to a good person, though. He's watching out for us.
Sorry, I'm just highlighting who, just to help your eyes out a little. There you go. I've highlighted who is not unaddressed.
Where's the,
So, okay.
where's the appraisers?
Oh, it's up just a touch here.
Mr. Baumann is here. also.
Commissioner Steve Allen, County Appraiser.
Most of this just reflects the increase in salaries.
This is the standard step increases for employees, less the $4,000 insurance transfer. So I think our salaries increase was overall 2%. A little over 2%, 2.15%, and then we had a 4% reduction in contractual services, totaling a 1.9% increase overall. So flat budget other than salaries and the reduction to the insurance that moved to the general fund.
Commissioner Mays?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the appraiser's budget.
I'll second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Mays to approve the appraiser's budget. That's been seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0.
Also, the weed department, I believe, is all salaries and insurance costs, unemployment insurance, that kind of thing. So I would make a motion that we approve the weed department as well.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays to approve the weed department. It's been seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0.
I assume, John, you would have corrected me if I was wrong in that, right? Yeah.
Say don't.
Do we want to make more adjustments?
So, yeah, well, I don't know if it's an adjustment so much, but looking at Public Works, I mean, they're more or less flat. And it looks like the insurance cost that came out was like $95,000. But even with that, of that size of a budget, it's pretty reasonable. So I mean, does that sound right to you?
Yeah,
So-
they did not have a,
Yeah, so I'd make a motion we approve Public Works as presented as well.
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion made to approve by Commissioner Mays. It's been seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, it passes 3-0.
I was just gonna say, I can make sure to send you guys the spreadsheet that I have of the departmental adjustments that we made for insurance. I know we're scheduled to discuss the budget again next Thursday, the 22nd.
Unless there's other motions to be made, let's go ahead and stop here for today. So we will pick back up on this budget discussion next Thursday. Brings us to our next item.
Item 5, public comment.
This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the Board of County Commissioners.
Henry McClure, Shawnee County. As you consider the appraiser's budget, you ought to consider getting him some software to where he can analyze commercial real estate more efficiently. Today, the process is anybody protests, you go in and I don't believe he's got enough tools to do his job as an appraiser. There's really not enough property comparables in Shawnee County to adequately defend or justify the appraised value. So basically in commercial real estate, since there's not as many comparables as there are in residential, you pay the taxes until you go protest it. But there's a lot of good commercial software that he could use, and any appraiser can add the plus and the minus for the market or the town. And I think that would give him the tools to have him do his job better, and it's not a big expense. It seems like there's a policy problem going on here. I think Nelda's got 30 years' experience as an architect. She ought to be able to call Fran Hug and come over and look at the bathrooms. I'm glad you guys pulled that from the agenda. And maybe women deserve better bathrooms. And maybe doing one at a time might be the way to do it. But it seems like these people, you've got a lot of good people working for you. And it's like, if there's a policy that we don't have money set aside to get a bid, that's wrong. So let's look at it this way. You wouldn't hire a guy that mows the lawn down the street to put together specs to mow your lawn and then go out and get bids to mow the lawn. It's a wasted step. You got a lot of good architects in town. Architect 1, Greg Schwartz, Brian Falk, there's others. But they know, it's their obligation to know how to cut the grass. They're gonna know what the specs are. And so we ought to be getting 3 bids first and come in here with the 3 bids. Hey, I got 3 bids from these architects. This is what it's gonna cost just to design it. And then you never do a design build. That's so Uncle Bob gets the inside deal. Design build is not the way to do it. It's not open market. It's not, you're never gonna get your best bid on design build. So you take the architects. It's kind of like getting a children's book delivered to you, isn't it? Like after a committee meeting. But you're never gonna get the best bids with design build. So you go out and open it up to the market, and then they come in with the 3 bids or from different contractors, and we ought to be doing this today as we're doing the budget. Let's save time. We got time on our hands. There's no need to wait. So thank you for your time. Got a lot of hard work. I can see why you feel like you need more time, because this process is like pulling teeth. It's a very laborious process. I know it's important, but a lot of these professionals could come in here and do business better if they were just allowed to bring in bids and do a little free thinking. So thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, our next item.
Administrative Communications, item 6.
Is there any department head that wishes to address the commission? Commissioner Rippon? Commissioner Mays? All right.
Do we have a work session next, or we have canvas voting, or?
The 19th, and we're just getting to that.
Okay.
On the 19th, we are scheduled to meet as the Board of County Canvassers to certify the 2024 primary election results, so there will not be a work session on Monday. There will be a meeting at the elections office at 9 a.m. on Monday the 19th. So, our next item.
Item 7, executive session.
There is a need to adjourn to an executive session to discuss matters related to employee or employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representative or representatives of the body or agency. This would be specifically as to Teamsters and with the Communication Workers of America, and this would be for a period not to exceed 15 minutes. And no action is anticipated. Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? We are going to be going, it's been approved 3-0. We'll go into executive session soon.
second?
Oh,
Get our recording going.
We are back from executive session. No action was taken. We are adjourned.